Welcome, folks. Thank you for joining our webinar. I'm your host, Evan Saint-Gerard, along with my co-host, Dean Graber from Keller Williams Realty Landmark, where your real estate agents always putting things together of value so you can always know what your next move is. Today's seminar, we just wanted to introduce our two of our top professionals that we work with on a daily basis. Joe Castagna of Contour Mortgage, who will cover the financial strategies and lending options, and also Anthony Russo, who will be discussing our legal considerations, contracts, contingencies, and protecting homeowners during the transaction process. That's a mouthful. Anyway, I'm just going to have each person from the panel say hello to the audience. So we'll start with Mr. Graber.
Hi, everybody. Dean Graber, Keller Williams Realty. I work with Evantz in our office in Queens, New York. We're helping sellers and buyers in Queens, Brooklyn, Long Island, Staten Island, Bronx, Yonkers, all over New York area. And hopefully that we can share some good information with you tonight. That's helpful.
Joe Castagna. Hello, everybody from Contour Mortgage. We're based out of Garden City, New York, Long Island, but we're licensed in about 27 states throughout the United States.
And last but not least, Anthony Russo.
Hello, everyone. Anthony Russo. I'm an attorney with over 30 years experience. My practice is exclusively real estate. The same thing all throughout New York, Long Island, Nassau, Suffolk, Queens, Manhattan, the 5 boroughs, up into Westchester. So really anything that touches upon real estate. Happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, so let's dive deep. We have quite a few people that are here on queue, basically asking questions already. So I'll just start with what this is all about. One of the biggest fears that homeowners have is what happens if I sell my home and I can't find another one. We're going to go through that. Dean, what is one of the biggest mistakes that you see homeowners making when they're trying to coordinate both transactions?
The first thing is to know about your finances, really what you're comfortable with. It's your comfort level and your financial level. So you have to give a serious look to what you want to do. I mean, if moving is really important, so you're selling house A and you're going into house B, you have to see, number one, if you can financially buy house, the new home without selling your other home. If you can't, then the answer is really crystal clear up front. Need to get your home on the market and be on the way to getting that home sold. As far as doing that, we can do two things at once. We're looking at a home that you're looking to buy while your home is on the market, and we're trying to attract the best buyers. What happens is if this is a reasonable market and well-priced homes or properly priced homes are selling in a couple of weeks, then when you're looking for a home, that seller is going to ask of you, how are you buying my home? And quite simply, if it's from the sale of your home and your home isn't on the market yet, you already know the answer to that. You're not really going to get the proper consideration for that. So the best thing to do is really sit down with your realtor, hopefully Evantz and Ivy, sit down with your realtor, and you go through what your plans are, why you're moving, and what your finances are all about. And that's where Joe comes in, legally how it works. And obviously that's where Anthony comes in. And I want to just have an open discussion about what you look like financially and what kind of tolerance that, you have for the whole process. And hopefully if you're a little bit open-minded and you're hiring the right people, we'll be able to get you moved. Nobody has gone homeless on my watch or Evantz's watch or any of our watches. And it's simply not going to happen. And our job is to make this process as clear and easy as we can and timing everything for you. There's always going to be a home for you to buy and to find. And it's better that you find it knowing that that you have the money, that your home is sold or on the market and on its way to getting sold. And you'll see both sides of it, really clearly once you enter the market. All right.
Dean, can you tap into when somebody's buying, they're selling here, but they're buying in another state, let's say like Florida or Atlanta?
Okay. All right. Now that's a great question. This one starts with the word communication as the answer to this. And the reason for that is when you're buying in another state, we can refer you to an agent or you have someone else that you're already working with. That's fine. You'll find that other states are more definitive in their closing time than New York is. In other states, they're going to close in 30, 40 days. And as soon as you sign a contract, almost right then and there with that contract, a real closing date is going to be discussed and outlined right there. Now in New York, the other side, again, Anthony will talk about this. It's a little bit, you have a 30-day window usually, or a little bit of a window. There is a date, but it's a little less defined. And that's where the communication between ourselves here, Evantz and I, and your real estate professional and the other state would have to be in good communication with each other so that we can just align everything up and time it properly and give your agent in the new state the proper expectations of how New York works. Because honestly, we are a little bit different than, I believe, than the other 49 states. It's all of them, and then there's us. And the other agents aren't always fully aware. It's our job and our pleasure to make them, understand all of that.
I think the most important thing I want people to understand and come through from this is to understand it's teamwork, and the teamwork doesn't happen unless you work with the right people. And Joe, I have a question that came up from people who are on the financing side. Many homeowners are unaware of whether they can even qualify for another property while they're still owning the current property. Can you walk us through that process and how it works?
Sure. So it's just like getting a pre-approval to purchase your first home. We have to look at the income. We have to look at the credit. We have to see if you can financially afford two mortgages at one time, or are you selling to buy? So obviously we have the game plan before you even go out looking, whether you're selling to buy or you can afford to purchase that other home without selling. The perfect situation is I want to sell in the morning and buy in the afternoon. But let's face it, that's putting a lot of stress on you and everybody else. And it usually doesn't happen that conveniently. It can happen conveniently if you have all your ducks in a row, meaning you have enough money to purchase and you have enough income to qualify for both.
What financing options help homeowners avoid feeling stuck? Because that does come up a lot when the conversations that we're having with the homeowners. They don't want to feel stuck when in between the process.
Meaning if they're selling to buy or they just own a house and they want to buy another.
They're buying another house. They're not sure how much equity they have, or either give us either scenario.
All right. So the best scenario is that they have enough money to purchase the second home without selling the first home and enough income. If that's not the case, they could always take an equity line on their primary residence to give themselves the cash for a down payment and some extra money to make the two payments if they're waiting for the first house to be sold. If timing is very fast, where they have to move quick on a property, a bridge loan is more effective because it's a very fast closing and they could get their hands on money. But we first need to figure out how much equity they have in the primary residence as to what they have borrowed and what is remaining and what's possible.
The other question that came up is what should homeowners financially prepare before making a move? You kind of cover that. Somebody else asked that question also.
Well, they got to figure out what they want to purchase, like a dollar amount, a loan amount, or a purchase price, taxes, insurance, figure out a monthly payment, and figure out if they can qualify for it.
All right. That's awesome. The next thing we're going to transition to Anthony. Thank you so much, Joe. Anthony, once a home buyers and sellers begin to enter the contract on both sides, that's where the legal side becomes extremely important. Walk us through the contingencies and occupancy agreements and stuff like that. How do you put everything together?
So thank you, everyone. It's a very difficult balance, and most of it starts with having a good team, as you mentioned, and planning with that team. So once you speak to your financial advisor or mortgage originator like Joe and know what you can afford, and then you go out and find a property, a lot goes into how the deal is structured from the start, even before the attorney gets involved. So Dean and Evans are showing you properties or listing your home. Either way, the timeline that you are going to need or want is critical to structuring the deals that way. And a lot of times, agents will overlook that, but I know Dean and Evans make a priority of being structured, and that's exactly what you need here. Knowing that you need to sell, knowing that you're buying in another state, knowing that time frame in that other state. Most other states have like a hard date to close. If you buy something, it's going to close June 15th, and that's the deadline to close. New York has a 30-day window, as you mentioned. So on or about June 15th means June 15th to July 15th. So once it's structured, the deal as I'm selling my home, I expect to close this, and the contract will reflect what you agreed to. So we expect to close between June 15th and July 15th. That has to be embodied in the deal. So you and the buyer and seller know that. And that term will then be incorporated in the contract by the professionals, the attorneys, so that you have that June 15th, July 15th window to close. And then when you buy, it has to be added to that contract as well, if you can. If it's in New York, if it's out of state, it's a little more difficult, but then you would structure that closing for, July 15th. So you have the end date kind of match up. And then if your attorney handles the contract properly, he or she can put little things in your contract that will give you a term to stay over in the house you're selling if you need that. If you can get 5 or 10 days generally, that if you sell your home, you can use those 5 or 10 days to stay in the home and transition and get those funds flowing for your purchase so that you can then pay the funds for your purchase and move into that new home while you're leaving your old home. So the answer to the question is that it depends on a lot of structuring starting from the very beginning.
Have to do that over, Anthony.
All right. So
Word for
Anthony,
word.
that was great, the information that you gave us. I do have another question that just came up, and let me just see if I can find it. So Anthony, what are legal mistakes that create the biggest issues during these transactions?
Where to begin?
Well, no, again, as I mentioned, the planning with the realtors is important, and then putting that in the contract and structuring it properly. I mean, in the old days, we used to do a lot of closings same day. I could have you sell in the morning and buy in the afternoon. The way things work today, that's not realistic. So we generally structure them a day apart, sell and the buy the next day. So it's important, as I said, to plan that way and to make sure your contract reflects that proper dating and the holdover period that you need to match up. You also, there's a lot of planning in the contracts and how your attorney protects you, and also what type of deposit you get. So if you're buying and you have to put down a certain sum of money, let's say $20,000 in the house you're buying, you generally want to make sure the house you're selling also has that similar amount from that buyer. So that way you're equally protected. Your money that you have down on your purchase that you could lose, rarely, but could lose, you want to make sure that you're protected on the other side with the house you're selling. So if that buyer runs away or doesn't finish that transaction, which is extreme, you have recourse against that $20,000, which will cover you for the $20,000 you've laid out for your purchase. So that's just an example of a protection that I would make sure you're on equal footing when you structure those deals and when you structure your contracts. But same token, when you're buying, you want to make sure you have the right windows in your contract and the protections that if you need certain things done right for the property, that the seller is obligated to do it. So again, it all comes into planning, whether it's with the realtors or even with your attorney, and the contract review and process, and negotiating that contract is very important.
Anthony, I got another one for you. It's really regarding occupancy agreements. Which ones will work if someone needs additional time after the closing, which is common?
Well, the answer to the question is you have to plan that from the start. So when I do a contract, I always put in a post-closing possession. I'm going to say an occupancy, post-closing occupancy provision. And I usually ask for 10 days. And that gives my seller the right to sell the house, stay in for 10 days. They have to put some money in escrow. Let's say $10,000. So $10,000 of the sales price is withheld. It's held by their attorney. If that was me, I'd hold it as the seller's attorney. And it guarantees the seller will get out in those 10 days. And during those 10 days, the seller will pay those carrying costs and the buyer's mortgage daily interest rate. That's all natural. That's all normal. But if that's not in there, it's not structured properly, you can't ask for it at the end. So you need to have that foresight to kind of plan and get that in the contract. And a lot of buyers will say, I don't want it in there. They don't want to take that risk. So as a seller's attorney, you need to say, no, my client may very well need that. Even though we're not planning on using it, he needs that or she needs that. We cannot let that go. And you have to fight for that and keep that in there, because some people will say, listen, I don't like it. I get that I don't like it. I don't like it either, but it's a necessity in these situations. So having the wherewithal to put it in and fight to keep it in is important. If you ask for it at the end, you're probably never going to get it, because they're just going to say, we won't close until you're ready to get out. So you won't get the funds until you're walking out the door. And if you need the time to buy, you need the money to buy, you can't structure it that way. So you can't add it on later on. Again, planning has to be put in the beginning. So if you don't set that up and then need the time, you will not get it. And more importantly, if you need more than the 10 days, for example, sure, you need 15 days. Sometimes I can say, listen, we're going to close. My client will be out, but cannot get out for 12 days, 15 days. And we'll get the other attorney to agree to that before we close. But, if you don't have it in there at all to ask for that time, you're never going to get it. So the biggest mistake is not having it in there for a reasonable time, 5 or 10 days, or being prepared to use it if you need to.
Anthony, thanks so much for that. We're gonna go through some of the questions that I see are popping up right now, so everybody can jump in whenever. What if my house sells before I find another home? Dean, you want to unmute yourself?
Say the question again. Which order?
What if I sell the house? The house sells before I find another home.
All right. Well, renting is always an option. Short-term rentals, Airbnbs are always an option. If you really had the right buyer with the right terms and you were making the right amount of money and everything really fell into place and you wanted to close, if that buyer didn't have the time to wait for you to add another month or 2 months onto the end of the transaction, you can do short-term rentals. We've had actually a couple of people that have done that. I have more and more people right now that want to make sure when they're buying a home, they do get the right home and they don't want to feel like because their home is sold that they now have to choose something that might not be exactly what they wanted. If you feel that that could be you, these people have willingly upfront kind of went into this knowing they're going to get a short-term rental. 3 months, 6 months. I have someone with a closing in Queens Village who's getting a 1-year rental in Port Washington. They want to be on Long Island, and they've had that plan from beforehand that they were going to look for a rental. I mean, do you know who that is? And then we have other people who just understand that they're going to get Airbnbs for 1 month at a time, but they do that to not just to take the pressure off of them and to help them make the right decisions. I mean, if you know that you want to move and you want to move a larger house or a smaller home or a different school district or whatever the reason is, then you go ahead and do it. And then we talk about your options up front. Sometimes you could be looking for a home with us. And if that home didn't come along, then understand. But we would help you understand up front that your plan B might be moving into a short-term rental. Or we can just simply make that plan A, maybe surprise yourself and find the right house along the way. But you can do this and remove some of the pressure. That's the pressure valve, is the Airbnb type short-term rental.
I think the most important thing, I think we've all kind of said it, you have to think of us, we are a team, and we can't help you unless you give us all the information, all the facts. You have to let us know exactly what's going on. We can't read your mind. We can only help you basically if you give us all the information. So let us know when we're asking those questions. It does feel like we're prying sometimes, but we're asking these questions in order to help you, and we can't help you if we don't get all that info. The next question, can I make an offer before my current house sells? Dean, I'll let you answer this one. You know my answer to this one already.
Can you make an offer? You have to listen to how the question was asked. Can you make an offer? Sure, you can make an offer. The only thing is that if you're a seller on the other side and you hear the same question as mentioned before, how are you paying for this home? I'm going to be selling my home. Fantastic. And what's the status of that? And there's going to be two answers. It's either on the market for a few weeks and we're moving along, or it's not on the market yet. And you already know the answer. If you're listening to this and you're a prospective home seller, put that hat on. If it's from the sale of a home and you haven't begun the process, then your offer honestly is not going to get considered.
Just think of it this way. Everything is connected. We're going to be asking the same question to the buyers that are coming for your home to purchase your home.
Exactly.
We need to know where they are along in the process, because if there's a delay on their side, it's going to delay you and what you want to do. So just always remember that. This one's a really good one. Should I renovate before listing? We like to save you as much money as possible, Dean, but what's your take on this one?
Should you renovate before listing? All right. Well, first of all, it's not one size fits all. So I can't tell you all the time what the answer is. What's my answer most of the time? No. Answer most of the time is clean your house as best as you can. Fix anything that's blatantly a flaw, leaks, or a room that needs to be painted, or carpeting that might have to be done, stuff like that. Can you imagine this? A kitchen is $40,000. Your house is $800,000. So just work with the math with me for a second. You go and you spend $40,000 and redo your entire kitchen, yet the market drops 5% in the 4 months that you're doing it. It's possible. It's happened before. So then all that money that you were counting on in the current market is not there in the new market. So you run a huge risk. And I think we can all say it's safe to say it's very hard to predict the market trends or anything, even more so now. And I think we all know that. So it's hard to predict where our market is going. Past performance, wonderful, but there's no guarantee of what the future is. I think we've all heard that before. So my answer is no. Make your home as clean as it can, and have a carpenter come in. And certainly we can recommend people. Have us come in and take a look at your home, and we'll get the right person that can make it show ready. And there's a price for every house also. So see if the price in your current condition works for you.
All right. The next question, it kind of ties into the last question. How long does the process take? Really, you kind of hit it on the head. The house has to be show ready. It has to be listed at the right price to make a move. And we have to know what your ultimate goal is, where your next point A and where point B is, where the next stage that you want to be in. So going back to getting the house show ready, the best way I describe this to all our clients is pretty much pretend your grandmother and your aunts, those judgmental aunts that we all have, are coming over to your house, and they're going to do the same exact thing every family, every ethnic background does. They're going to, you didn't have time to clean. I know it's kind of funny, but basically just think of it that way. Grandma, the aunts, they're coming through the house. Just make sure that it's something that grandma's not going to make a comment about. So keep the house as clean as possible. And if you need help, let us know. We can recommend some people in crew. There is no shame in the game. We have people that can help you. The next one, actually the same question. How long does the process take, Joe, for you on the mortgage side?
It takes 30 to 45 days. That's the standard time frame. You know, we got to get a title report, we got to get an appraisal. You know, it's it's pretty standard. To promise anything sooner is just not really a smart thing to do.
Joe, I have another mortgage question for you. What happens if the mortgage rates change during the process?
It's a great question. I mean, when we pre-approve somebody, obviously I always use a higher rate just to make sure that we cover ourselves. But absolutely, that's a great question, and that can happen. And I've seen it happen. I'm sure you guys experienced it too. You went into contract, the rates went up, and now the people don't qualify anymore. It happens. I would say when you do your pre-approval, you always want to have a cushion in there. You don't want to work to very tight conditions.
All right. So my next question is going to be for the whole panel. So I'm gonna, Anthony, you're gonna be the first person that I'm gonna ask this to. What's the smartest first move for homeowners who are considering to move?
When they're selling and buying at the same time, I assume.
Yeah.
I guess the smartest move is to have a good idea of where you're going and what you're looking to buy and knowing that market. For example, if I'm going to sell here in New York and move to Florida, I should be very well versed in that market in Florida and targeting the things I want, knowing the price point of what I want, and how realistic it is for me to offer a certain dollar value for that type of home. Even though you don't have a home there yet, then you put yours up for sale and sell it. And once you have an accepted offer, then to move into that other market and pursue and make an offer that hopefully gets accepted. But that having that realistic knowledge and knowing what you want and what you can afford with Joe and with realtors that target what you want and the price point you want so that you can be ready to move quickly once your house sells and goes into contract while you're waiting to close, finding that other property promptly without wasting time. The longer that gap, the more risky it is that you're going to be able to close them together. So that's the most important part.
Joe, same question.
He said it. Anthony said it from the get-go. I would need to know where I'm going before I would even consider talking to somebody about selling my house. You got to know where you're going, or at least have a definitive direction. Because anybody will tell you, you put your house on the market, it could be sold in the first weekend.
Dean, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Right. I'm gonna say the same thing with this. It's not just motivation. It's where are you going? Where are you going? Why are you going there? What's taking you there? You just have to be clear on that. I mean, if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter what your house is worth. It doesn't matter how much you qualified for. You don't know if homes are $300,000 or $800,000 or whatever, where you are. So you have to know where you're going. And then like when we work with buyers, before we can take out buyers, the mortgage becomes number one thing that you have to do. When we're working with somebody selling and buying, I think you can do two things at the same time. Make an appointment with your lender, let us tell you what the house is worth and let us see what kind of, after we find out what kind of equity you have, what kind of money you can, what kind of mortgage you can afford. I think those are almost tied when you're selling and buying, but if you're buying a home 100%, start with, and need to know what to pay, what the mortgage is. The thing with the mortgage, it's not just, I find with people a lot, they'll say to me, my credit's good, I have a good job, I'll be fine. And people always think that we're asking so that we know. I think people should get pre-approved so you know what your payments are. Because I've seen people in the past also, they want to buy a home for $500,000, put $100,000 down, but they can't believe their mortgage payment is still $3,200. Whatever it is, it's just a number they didn't They didn't even just do the number properly. They only did the top line numbers, like 500, realize what it is. I think it's just educate yourself, but find the mortgage stuff really soon too.
My answer to add to everything that everybody just said is pretty much ditto, but also you want to start planning out who you're going to be working with. Find out, it's really important to find out where you want to go, how much money it's going to cost you, or the legal aspects and all that stuff. But you got to find out who you're going to be working with, whether it's here or over there. You got to find out what it looks like. Find professionals that can paint the picture for you. Here's what my plan is. What are the steps that I need to do? So find out who you need to work with. That's my take on that one. We got another one that just came up. This is for Anthony. What are some common legal misunderstandings homeowners have going into the transactions? What do you see often?
Well, there's several. First is that, that there's no real deadline in a contract, or that if their bank has a deadline, that becomes the deadline in the contract. So again, not to redo the whole point, but if someone is buying or selling, there is a window to close that's agreed to in the deal and then put in that contract. That is something we live with, and we live with that in terms of having the structure to get us there. So if you're selling your home and we have a closing date that's going to be 60 to 90 days away, that 90th day is your target. If you're going to buy something somewhere else or even locally, to have a shorter window than that is going to conflict with your sale. They have to match up. And sometimes you'll get professionals, that have, I don't want to say different motives, but different timeline. Having a good team is critical, as we keep saying, but you can get a loan officer that's going to give you a mortgage at a great rate, but only keep it open for 30 days. If your sale isn't going to take place for 60 to 90 days, having a 30-day window to close your purchase is not helpful. And having a banker that gives you that 30-day window only, an attractive rate, and then pushes you to change your sale isn't going to help either, because you can't change your sale. You're locked into a contract. So you have to have that knowledge to speak to your attorney and know what my window is. And then you have to have professionals that, as I said, the realtors that find you something that matches that and those parameters, and a banker who sets you up to close within those same parameters, not the parameters that that banker wants, or that realtor, listen, I can get a better commission or I have a faster deal. That's great. We all want to do it fast, but if it doesn't match what you're already married to, then you have a huge problem. So this whole risk of selling and buying, it definitely is a risky process. People do it every day. If you navigate it properly, proper team, proper planning, and proper coordination between the professionals, it makes it tremendously easier. And that is my biggest advice in this seminar.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Joe, what's one of the biggest financing mistakes that you see homeowners make when they're trying to move up or downsize?
Well, recently I had a school teacher come to me. She had a property in Syosset she wanted to sell, and she was getting divorced, and she wanted to buy another property. And I said, great, you're selling to buy, fantastic. But where is the money coming from for the down payment on the house that you want to buy? And she had no savings. So this is a lady that owns a house. You would have thought, she had some experience. The money was coming from a sale, but she had no money to put down at the signing of a contract. So it worked out. She had to get a gift from somebody, but this is, you would think, is common sense, but people don't realize. And I think that stems from the question we had: can I make an offer without selling my house? I think the real question was, I don't have a down payment.
Yeah, well, Joe, people think that you can't use the down payment that someone's giving you for your home to buy. It
Correct.
becomes no one's money for a moment.
True. I get that a lot. So that's a good point, Dean.
I'm glad you're.
It happened to me recently, and I was perplexed that there was no money in savings.
So the next one I have right now, and this is open to all the panel. If a homeowner is thinking about making a move in the next 3 to 6 months, what should they be doing right now to put themselves in the best position? Who wants to go first?
You're talking about a first-time buyer, or
No.
a
This is
sale?
the homeowner who's watching this right now. They're planning to make a move in the next 3 to 6 months. What's something that they should be doing right now to put themselves in the best position? My answer is very easy. Call us. Well, what's your answers?
After you call, let's see how much money you have, and then call Joe.
And then call me. But
Okay.
again,
And then go ahead.
but it all stems from back. We keep saying the planning and
Mhm.
having a good team, people that you can rely upon, whether it's us or someone else, as long as they're reliable, not someone
Right.
just were referred to as someone that does other types of law or other types of real estate. Making sure you have a trusted panel, and then as we've each touched upon, preparing the house for sale, knowing your mortgage amounts, having a target of where you're going, what you're going to pay for something there, and what reasonable options you have, and then listing and selling and transitioning into the buy and making sure it's set up properly. So it kind of ties in everything we've discussed so far. That's my answer.
The other thing I want to say is when you're working with professionals, like if you hire me to be your real estate salesperson, your real estate professional to sell your house, it's not just my word, my track record. I'm going to steer you in the right direction or point you in the right direction based on all the experiences we've had with our clients. It's probably not okay to listen to all your relatives, all your friends, all your coworkers who have an opinion what direction you should go in. I mean, if you're hiring me, it's a little bit of blind faith, but it's not because you're gonna check a track record and you're gonna look for references and you're gonna go on somebody's experience. Think of it as the same thing. You're going to court, you're on a trial, but you're not listening to your lawyer because you're told you to approach this case this way, yet your lawyer's right here, and it's the same thing. And treat this the same, like we treat our profession the same as an airline pilot, the same as a doctor, the same as as a lawyer. So he's a lawyer here, but I'm just saying, but like the same as as other professions. And that's all. And it will make your experience much smoother. If we're working with the real estate, let us handle the real estate. Joe, the mortgage, Anthony, the legal side.
All right. With that being said, I want the homeowner who's watching this right now to come away with something. So I'm going to ask the panel, each panel member, what's something, a word of encouragement that you want to leave with them, or give them some piece of advice that they can come off from this webinar that they'll feel better about. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay. I
Go
would just say, I would just say, whatever your plans are, have a consultation with somebody that is referred to you or somebody like myself, a guy who's been doing it for 24 years, and just judge how the conversation goes based on questions and answers, and just be prepared. Do the homework up front before you make any hasty decisions, like listing your house on the market before you know where you're going. You just have to have a consultation with a professional, and you could talk to other professionals, but do the work up front before you get into a transaction.
Dean, how about yourself?
All right. For me, the best part about this job, I love when someone comes to us with either a plan that they want to achieve or a problem that they have and they don't know how to get to the other side of it. And it's usually 90 days later or so, we're on the other side of it. They're getting the keys to the house or they're getting their check for their sale of their home and they're happy at their closing. And just thinking back, and I'll remind them a lot. Look at where we were, just back, 90 days ago, and look at where we are today. Congratulations. And that's what the job is all about.
Anthony, same. What advice do you have for
Yeah,
you?
I see it as daunting as it seems to sell and buy. I see it every day where clients come to me, they list their house, they get into contract to sell their home, and then they find a home after that and sign another contract, put money down to buy something, and then have to navigate the course until they both match up. And as risky or turbulent as that sounds, we do it every day and we do it very well. And as Dean said earlier, I don't know anyone that's gone homeless. We've always made it work. So there's a lot of planning and preparation and navigating involved. But when you use professionals that are good at what they do, we will always get you there. And that is the process of selling your home, getting 60 to 90 days to close, finding something in between and getting that to match up or marry up is what we are experts in.
All right. Well, mine is pretty simple. We all said the same exact thing, kind of, sort of. Find the professionals that can actually make you feel comfortable with the process. And hopefully that's us. If it's not, that's fine. But basically, you want to find someone who's, doesn't have commission breath. They're really out there to help you with whatever your situation is to get you from point A to point B. With that being said, we're going to wrap this up right now. I want to thank again my panelists for being on this tonight, and thank you all for joining to watch this. A big thank you to everyone. And if there's one thing I want you guys to take away from tonight, it's you're selling a home and you're buying your next home doesn't have to be stressful, but it does require having a plan, which we discuss quite almost in nauseam. But you definitely have to have a plan. If there's one thing I want you guys to take away from this is basically the smoothest transactions are the ones that start early, understanding your options, surrounding yourself with the right team, and hopefully you found that team here. If you're thinking about making a move in the next 3, 6, or even 12 months, now's the time to start that conversation. Myself and our team are proudly serving Queens, Brooklyn, Long Island, and the Bronx, and we'll be happy to help you map out your strategy that fits your situation. Feel free to reach out to us directly after this, and we're here to help you. And if you have family members who are looking to do the same thing, we're here to help them as well. Thanks again for watching. Have a great night. Peace out.
Good night.